Welcome to the building of the TLR 8ight-E 3.0. Thank you to Rob for sponsoring this episode on my YouTube channel. This is his kit. I am going to build it for him. So when I'm done, this is his, of course, but I get to unbox it, build it, and show it to you guys. Welcome back. We're working on bag C of the Losi 8ight-E 3.0 build. Everything should be included in this bag. Quick look over what we've done so far in the first two versions. We have the front clip all done, the steering rack, the front brace and upper brace all ready to go on the chassis. Looking good so far. Now we're going to start working our way back. Next section is the center diff. Step 1, open the bag. So this one bag contains 3 separate bags. And then another bottle of 5,000 white oil. This is for the center diff. We're not going to use this oil. Just there, that's got 5,000. This is a little too light for the amount of power Rob's going to put in this car. So to counteract that, we're probably going to start with about 10 to 15. Oh, no, we're not ruined. I found it. Ah, there we are. This is the piece I was looking for right here in the instructions. It was already clicked in. Didn't really notice it because it looked part of the diff ring. So, like we did the first diff, we're going to build the first half of the diff, then the second half, and then put them together with all their pieces. So, again, exactly the same way we did the first diff, or differential. The piece of parts. I'm not going to lose them. So, first thing we need, again, everything hinges on this little piece labeled LOSA 3560. So starting on the back side, the first thing we need is this little shim, which is the TLR 242008, the little shim, then the flange bearing. The flange side of the bearing, see the little ridge right there, that needs to go towards the diff. And now that is nice and smooth. After that, we can slide on one of our shafts, and on the inside now, we can put a little black grease. So use a little black grease. And look on this side, not on the outside, because when it's on the outside, like they showed right there, what happens is it picks up dirt. And that's not what we want. So we have our O-ring, then we have our washer. On top of the O-ring, we'll use that washer to push the O-ring into place. So everything will spin, 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 spin. And then we need our small pin, and that will go in like so. With the pin in, the last piece is this gear, you just drop on top. And there's one side done. Now again, like the other diff we had, we're going to build exactly the same. We need to then assemble this side. So the same things we're doing before. This time, again, the same shim. The front diff and the rear diff don't need shimming, or sorry, the rear diff probably does need shimming. The front does not. Just the way it's manufactured, that's it, right? These shims allow movement forward and back, or forward and aft, of the center differential, so if you need to move something just a little bit in the way, we can move shims around it and make it work a little better for us. There's that. Little dab of grease will do us. Dab, dab, dab. Like so. Drop our O-ring over top. That's where it gets a little tricky. And then our washer. Alright, usually take my 30-second nut driver. Just go like this and just push it down inside. And we're good there. Grab our other little shim. Drop inside, grab a pair of pliers. And then we'll find the hole. Try to get it in there without killing yourselves. Sometimes it's going to be a little on the tricky side, but we got her. Try to get fairly lined up in the middle. Well, you can see that. That's what we're looking for. Oh, there we go. Try to cover this camera. And then we drop on our nice little handy-dandy gear. Put it on top, making sure that when we turn the bottom, it turns the gear. On the door, so that side. Next on our instructions, we have the assembly, the final assembly of the center diff. Take our bottom section, it's going to go down below. Cross pieces, this time make sure you get it right direction, facing in this time. Take a quick look at the instructions, make sure there's no shim on any of these pieces. Some of the older models, they actually use shims. And we'll drop this one in, trying to keep that key, now I can see that key facing up. And just like that. And goes in the other one. This time that keyway is going to go down. Try to get to interlock together in a cross, what we call cross gears, or bevel gears, because they're beveled. Apologize for the furnace noise, it's going to fix right now. There we go. So that's in there. Now they say the next step is to fill with 5,000. The way the Buggy handles, and the way these, I've done most of his other trucks, because he also has the 8 and the 10T, is I go heavier in the center to allow more four-wheel drive action. The lighter in the center, the less four-wheel drive, the more two-wheel drive action. And again, being the front wheels, that the car comes off and they can spin. Helps to pull you around corners if you need to get around corners tightly. But we're going to go up to 10,000 weight. I realize it's sacrilege to use another manufacturer stuff, but this is what I use. The Team Associated 10K or 10,000 CST diff oil. And you can give it a little thicker, it's actually a lot thicker. And the key with the thicker stuff is not to go too much. You want just to the top of the bevel. Just barely cover the cross gears. So we'll give that a second, we'll give it a little spin here. Make sure it gets all the air out, because the thicker the oil is, the harder this is to do. Yes, you're going to get dirty doing it. And let it sit for a second. I don't know how well you can see that, but so it needs a little bit more. So I want to just cover those cross gears. There we go. Next thing we got to worry about is this gasket. And it just sits on top of the upper piece. We'll line up the holes so you can see them through like that. Nice, nice. Just going to double check the level. Looks good to me. As long as none squeezes out here, we'll be just fine. And it didn't. Perfect. And then there we go. Now we don't just put the screws into the top cap because that's not what's next. According to the instructions, what's next is this gear with the beveled edges on it. One side's flat, one side has beveled edges. And we put that in right on top, like so. This is where it's very imperative to have all the holes lined up properly. If you don't, what I've been using is a little pick. You can get them at any good store, tool stores, whatever. But it's just got a little pick on the end. And it gets in the hole. You wiggle it around and it will turn everything and make sure everything's lined up. And then we're going to go through and hand bomb in. Who am I kidding? I'm not going to hand bomb those screws. That'll take forever. Okay, my first charged drill here. Oh, this reason. Again, you do not ever go fully tight with these drivers. You get close and you stop. Well, these are a little short. They still have some too. And you bring the screw in. If you don't want to stop, it will go right into the plastic and tear the plastic, or you just put those threads apart because it's worn already. Especially for the first time. Before it bottoms out, just stop. And we'll go through after with the hand screwdriver in, right down the rest of the way. The reason I have to wiggle that one to get it out is because it is a little too tight of a fit on these 5/64 side screws. They're perfect on 2mm, which is basically the same size. It's like just less than a thou off. But, again, they're just a bit oversized. Even though it's labeled 5/64, it actually fits a 2mm better. There we go. Now if you want too tight, sometimes this action here will be very stiff or not move at all. And that's not what you want. You want this to diff out a little bit. It's stiff, but I can still move it. So there we go, there's that. We can put that aside. Close up our oil, because the last thing you want is oil to leak everywhere. Yum, yum, yum. And you see they have on the sheet how I did it. You tighten from one, go across, go over, and then go across, like you're putting on a tire. Alright, next we have the assembly for our center diff. And that's when the first package comes into play. When you put the motor plate on, it'll sandwich there and create a solid lock. And then there's a screw on the bottom that will tighten to lock it in. There it is there. There we go. And the nice thing, they've even left a little keyway. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little keyway there. Finger in. There we go. It's really handy for getting your screwdriver in to tighten your pinion. So it goes like so. on this side, and then the other one will go on the other side. Now this one's plastic, okay, like that. Actually, it probably goes like that. There we go. But what we'll do is we'll build this up properly. Again, here's the diff instructions. Yeah, so it would be electric versions, diff to the back, like this. Just a nice little groove there for it. And the little electric hub is diff to the front. So they call this shim on either side, I believe. And what it does is it goes around the bearing and sits on the edge of the flange of the bearing. So it's just kind of staying out of the way. And this side has a little raised section, and that'll go towards the diff. And then to make sure there's no interference. So there's that piece. We'll flip this over now. And get the other shim, put it over top of the bearing. Now it's not on the inside of the bearing, but it's on the very outside edge. And then we can put our other shim in place. With a cone, there's a cone on that piece right there. That's a cone on one side and kind of hash on the other. That hash goes towards the diff on the narrow side. There we go. And make sure it's oriented the right way. And we have our diff case top, which is a thicker piece of plastic. It will hold everything together, and we have this cage that's on top. I'm guessing it's a wire loom, so we'll be probably taking this off to run the wires through, or just running through. That actually looks very nice. And we're going to grab some screws. Looks like there's 4 of these little guys, yep. And again, I'll run these in with the drill. Now the 2 that go into the plastic side do not need Loctite. The 2 that go into the aluminum side, onto the motor mount side, will need a Loctite. Okay, and then I'm going to get to Loctite. Screw back on. Really got to fix that tightness there, but that's okay. And then we'll just run some. See if the Loctite's not stuck. There it goes. Not too much, just a little dab will do us. Yeehaw. Problem with having oil in your hands. And I'm not going to go crazy tightening that one. I will loosen this guy. Add a little bit here. Okay, we don't need much. Now I'm going to grab my handy screwdriver and give this one a tighten. Metal side just till it's snug, plastic side until you feel the tension. Okay, you'll feel it as it goes. And there is the diff built in the standard configuration. And then this will mount to the chassis. Like so. So before we put this mount in and Loctite it in, we're going to mount the motor to the motor plate. Big shout out to Tekin, good products, even better support. So we have the big, ginormous, size of a pop can almost, not quite that big, but it's the T8 1900 kV 40 by 30 millimeter motor. Feels beautiful. Nice string relief on the back, good solder tabs. Could be bigger, but that's fine. Looks nice. And the Tekin RX8 Gen 2 speed control. There it is there. Big monster. Put that back in the box for now. And so on here, the end of the motor actually has two different size screw holes. It's got two that are 4 millimeters in size and 4 that are 3 millimeters in size. The holes here are just for 3 millimeter screws, and they gave us two of them. Two short and one long. So the two shorts are going to go in, and then we're just going to make sure we're lined up with two of those holes, like so. And again, this is 5/64ths. So before we do anything, metal into metal. Now, because I know who this is going to, and everybody else who knows this person understands, we're going to put a good amount of Loctite. Just for safety. One thing we don't want to have happen is that motor to come whipping off when he's doing 200 miles an hour down the backstretch. And I'm just kidding. These cars can't get that fast anyway. I think the fastest we clocked them on is about 60 miles an hour down at our track. That's a 150-foot back straight into a bank corner, so you can kind of hold some speed there. But beyond about 60, it gets one uncontrollable, and the traction is just so low after that. There we go. So it's mounted on like that. You can still access the pinion. Bob's your uncle. So in this, because it's the way it sandwiches in, getting that the right way, that slides on just like that. And we have our adjustability right there. Now I'm going to take this long one, screw here, put a little bit of Loctite on it, not too much, not too much. Just enough that it'll grab and stay put. And it goes in the adjustment hole here. Come on. And there's quite a bit of thread on that one, so we'll go down far. Now, what I also see, there's no washer of any kind to take up some of that space and to help clamp it down. So I think we might put a split washer on there at some point, but we'll see. We'll leave it like that for now. And there we go. We got wires coming off this side. Should be just nice the way they are there. We're rolling them around. That's at the bottom. This is the center port, and the strain release at the top, so it'll kind of follow the wires. It looks really nice. And here's our 4 mounting screws into the bottom of the chassis. So we're going to get the chassis out, turn it the correct way so we know which way everything's going, and then we need our dog bone. And this goes from the front to the center. Now, this is what wears a lot. It's basically the pins and the drive cups that wear. So, one good upgrade if we can find it. I know some manufacturers of the 10T had them. It's really nice. The 8's not so much. But a universal drive instead of a CV joint, but actually universal. Those work the best. And so what we'll do is put the dog bone in the front, slide it into the one in the middle, and then we can set it down on the car. Now, you can leave it there, try to screw it from below, and I'm not going to do that, but I will pre-set my screw on my screwdriver while holding the diff close to where it needs to be, turning the whole car on its side, and then lining up the holes at the bottom. Now all I need is one hole to line up for right now. And it's in the plastic, so I don't even need Loctite. And we're going to run that in. And you see they're fairly long screws, so could use the drill here, but again, I don't think it has enough torque to overcome this much tension on it. The first time through anyway. Once you get it in, it'll be fine. So once you get it down close and snug it up, everything else can be moved around. Now I'll do one of the metal ones, and it will require Loctite. Because anybody who has ever had a Losi product of the 8th scale or 10th scale variety in this design, they know that the 8th scale style center diff mount always comes loose. Does not matter if you hold your tongue the right way, you use the red you're dead Loctite, it just will come loose. Vibrations, I'm guessing, the major part of the chassis weight is there, so all the tension is based on that part. But that's just how it goes. So as long as we account for it, we understand it, and we check it often. Biggest thing I can tell anybody with these cars is to go flip the car over and just check every screw before, every day, every couple runs. One thing you don't want to have happen is partway through a run and something come loose and strip your spur gear, for example. That makes for a very lousy day. So we're going to run this guy home, and we're done. The C bag. On to my favorite bag. I don't like it because it sounds like a derogatory comment. There we go. So now we spin the center diff. You can see the outdrive spinning. Where are we? Here we go. I know everything's working. All hunky-dory. Sounds good. Dog bone's got lots of lash back and forth, so nothing's going to get bound up. And this car is starting to get heavy. So there we have it. This is the end of this bag. Again, I'll probably break it up into bags, make it nice and easy. Keep the videos shorter, easier to watch. And again, it also breaks it apart. So to go over in summary, we have the center diff, which is the same as all the diffs. They're all built exactly the same. Only other things, there's a couple shims. Now notice there's no play there. There's no lash back and forth. That's a good thing. You don't want a ton. If you need to move the diff a little bit, you can take that shim from one side, move it to the other, and we can slide it forward or we can bring it back. That's about a 1/2 mil, I think those shims were. Maybe even 0.25 of a millimeter. But again, we can adjust that way. They also, behind the bearing, they have shims. Those were 1/2 mil shims for sure. And again, you can move it back and forth. It looks good for what we need. It clears the motor mount. And with the spur gear, as long as the spur gear fits and catches the whole teeth, we're good. Yeah, again, we can adjust that. The motor's mounted. It clears everywhere. And what I usually like to do is put a little piece of foam, just double-sided tape foam, under the end of the motor. And if you have a look, you can see right under the motor as I go through. You'll see right under the motor, there's a gap there. And if this car comes down really hard, what's going to happen is all that weight is leveraged off this mount. One, you can bend the mount. Two, break a screw because it's up so high and it's not supported. I'm not going to put any pressure on it, but I'm just going to take up some of that slack with a hard piece of foam. Just double-sided tape to the chassis, and then it'll sit there and support the motor. That's all it needs to do. So the next set is going to be the rear clip, the D-bag, and we'll build the rear differential and the rear clip. So there we go. Looking pretty good, boys. Any questions? Leave them down below. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you like these videos, let me know. Let me know what you'd like to see changed. And it's a growing process. But I'll leave this here for now. We'll see you guys later.